right? So today's class, we will speak about Krishna's plan. Moments ago, we spoke about Krishna's ultimate plan is to bring all of us back to the spiritual world, right? And our plan is to serve him, to reconnect with him, right? To engage in uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that's the ultimate. Everything else is material, right? Reconnecting back to the Lord. That's exactly what religion is all about, right? Religion, or religare, means to reconnect our forgotten relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's Krishna's plan. How can we become an instrument in Krishna's plan? There are two verses from the Bhagavad Gita which really goes deep into this. And next week, or in our next lesson, we will actually discuss a little bit more about who are the personalities who became instrumental in Krishna's plan, right? All of us know about Arjuna, but there are so many other personalities, be it Hanumanji, etc., right? So we will discuss this as a prelude to our Srimad Bhagavatam classes. So there's these two verses which explain very clearly about how we should be conducting ourselves, right? As part of Krishna's plan. So let's look at the first verse. All right. So the first verse is, as early as chapter number 3, Krishna is already explaining to Arjuna about what is the tendency of most living entities. Most living entities, the moment there is success, right, they take entire ownership of that success. Immediately they will say that, oh, this is because of me. I did it. It's because of my prowess. It's because of my intelligence. It's because of my hard work that this manifested, right? You know, this whole series, Secret, right? There's this whole series, Secret, started off with a book, and then there are videos on this. There's a proper series, I think maybe on Netflix, or I'm not sure where, which speaks about the power of manifestation. If you keep on thinking diligently about something, that will manifest. If you give your heart to it, that will manifest. But Bhagavad Gita says no. All right? There's one more element which is required, which is the mercy of the Lord. Number one, more importantly, or I mean, as important is our karma, right? It's not just the mercy of the Lord, it's also how we have orchestrated our life, and therefore karma is such an important element. It's interesting because if you look at this is what I've heard. If you look at the Old Testament of the Bible and compare it to the New Testament, elements like karma, elements like the soul, all of this were removed, and therefore in Krishna consciousness, whenever something bad happens, we can say it's maybe because of karma, but in some of the Abrahamic religions, they mention that it is possibly devil, all right, evil, which is there, which is doing this. But in Sanatan Dharma is explained very clearly that there is an element of karma. So coming back to 3.27, this is a very, very important verse. In fact, Anuj Prabhu, I think you may be asked to also memorize this verse as part of your Bhakti Shastri program. I remember I had to memorize this. Right? So all of us, let's recite together this very important verse. Prakate kriyamanani
Prakrte kriyamānāni
gunai karmani sarvasaha
gunai karmāni sarvashah
ahankara vimudatma
ahankara vimudātma
kartaham iti manyate.
kartaham iti manyate.
Very nice. Right? So my apologies. I'm not a Sanskrit educated person. I can't even read Hindi, and therefore I'm just trying to read based on what is available in the Romanized alphabets or words. So Prakriti, the easiest way to memorize a verse is to go word by word, right? So Prakriti we know is material nature. So Prakriti means of the material nature. Kriya Manani means all being done, all the Kriya which is being done. Gunai, Gunai means by the three modes, all right? The three modes of material nature, right? These three modes of material natures are the three energies which are actually emanating from Krishna, right? They are emanating from Krishna and they are enveloping us. They are like the ropes which are enveloping us. They are like, binding us to this material world because that's what we want. We have been given this minute independence, right? And therefore, if we use our minute independence for the ultimate purpose, if we use our minute independence, orchestrating it in the direction of the plan of Krishna, right? Then what is going to happen is we will go beyond these three modes of material nature, right? There are only two people who can actually unbind us from this gunai or these three modes of material nature. Who are the two?
Spiritual master.
And Krishna.
God himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Right. There are only two personalities who can actually unbind us from this material nature. And why is it that they can unbind us, and not our parents or our best friends? Because our parents, our best friends, they are also
bound.
Exactly. They are also bound. Right. So therefore, if one is bound, how can that person, unbind us? Right. Sarvasaha means all kinds of. Ahankara vimudatma, meaning bewildered by false ego, thinking that I'm not a spirit soul, or just being attached to their material conception of life that I am the body, I am my senses, I am my mind, and not I am a spirit soul. Right? Atma, the spirit soul. Karta, all right? Karta Singh, the doer, right? Aham, I, iti, tas, manyate, thinking. So the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by material nature. Okay. I'll just go back to our earlier discussion on the plan of Krishna, and that the spiritual world is huge enough to accommodate all of us, right? So over here, we are just a spark, 10,000th, the tip of the hair. But when we go to the spiritual world, all right, we will be having our four hands, all right, complete body. But just imagine, over here, we are a spirit soul. The same spirit soul in the spiritual world expands into a full body form. That full body is 100% spiritual. Okay, not like this body. Over here, we are 99.9999% material. Only one small speck of spiritual nature is within us, which provides us the consciousness. But when we are in the spiritual world, the entire full body is spiritual in nature. So coming back to this verse, Krishna is saying that, the spirit soul, because of the years and years and lifetimes of conditioning by the three modes of material nature, we think we are the doer, but in actuality, it's the material world. I'll just take a pause here and ask Shalini Mataji, because I remember you always answer this question in the class. Who are the three doers in our lives actually?
Yes, Prabhuji, because I was always very, I got very impressed when I learned this in Bhagavad Gita classes,
Okay.
that we are not the only doers. Because Many times we are very proud, even for the good things or for our bad things. In good things, we take pride. In bad things, we blame ourselves. And we think like what we did was good, what we did was bad. But somewhere when we keep relying on three doers, we feel liberated. It is like we do it, but what we get is, and what we do is all dependent on our karma. And the third is the mercy of God. So we are the three doers, and knowing this is a very liberating feeling.
Okay.
In whenever we are happy or when we are sad, we can always console ourselves.
Wonderful. Right? So we desire Paramatma as the seer in our hearts will sanction it. And that sanctioning is based on our karma. Right? If we have enough merit points, the Lord may give this. If there are not enough merit points, then maybe we may get part of it, or we may not get it, or we may get it after a long period of time. And then once the entire sanctioning has happened, then the material nature under the jurisdiction of Goddess Durga takes over to actually provide this to us. Okay. So all clear on this? Wonderful. Thank you very much, Shalini Mataji. Now let's look at this purport. Two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there's a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced, because of his attachment to the ego, to the senses, to the body, to the mind, that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptoms of nescience. He does not know that this gross and subtle body, gross is all these material elements in our body, subtle, what is the subtle elements? The false ego, the intelligence, and the mind. Remember, that as a subtle body is the creation of material nature under the orders of Krishna. And as such, his bodily and mental activities should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna, which is Krishna consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Rishikesha, or the master of all the senses of the material body. For due to his long misuse of the senses in sense gratification, he's actually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. And therefore, going back to what is the plan of Krishna? The plan of Krishna is to remind us about our forgotten relationship with Krishna and to bring us back. So that's the first verse. Any realizations or reflections anyone would like to share? Please unmute yourself. Karthik Prabhu or anyone else? Let me see who else is here. We have 25 participants. Deepa Mataji, any realizations you want to share with us? Okay, no problem.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I'm still trying to understand.
Okay, no problem, Mataji. All right. It takes time for us to actually understand this and also live this, Like, for example, I used to be a salesperson. Whenever, I managed to close a big deal, it's because of me. It's because of my hard work, because of, whatever little intelligence which I had put into the orchestration of the deal. And then when something doesn't go well, and then we blame it to luck. We blame this to, oh, yeah, somehow things were not orchestrated. We blame the other parties. We blame people who had tried to help us, maybe because of their inefficiencies, etc. You see, that's how the mind keeps on playing this game with us. And therefore, connecting this back to one of the very key verses from Bhagavad Gita, that you do your duty to the best of your ability, but do not be attached to not doing your duty, and do not be attached to the results which are coming out from that work which we have done. Okay. All right, so now let's move on to what is the second verse which speaks about how one can become an instrument in Krishna's service. Okay, so this is from 11.33. This is a very, very important verse where Krishna is actually saying that, Arjuna, I've actually already killed all of these soldiers. All right, there's already a big grand plan of mine, right, in ensuring that there is dharma, number one, in punishing the miscreants. And now you, if you so desire, can become part of this plan, right? If you don't want to be part of this plan, that's also fine. So Krishna has already a plan. Krishna has already killed all of these guys, right? And now Krishna is saying, you just become part of my plan. So let's recite this verse together. I have not memorized this verse, so anyone who is more comfortable in reading a Sanskrit verse? Okay, now let's do it together. Tasmat tvam utista yaso labhasva.
Tasmat tvamutishta yaso labhasva.
Jitva satrun bhungsva rajyam samaradam.
Jitva shatrun bhum swarajyam samadram.
Mayevate nihata purvam eva.
Mayeta nihata purvam eva.
Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin.
Nimita matram bhavasavya sachi.
Okay, savya sachin means being, I think it's ambidextrous, which is like, you can use your left and right hand to do all the activities. So that was the power of Arjuna, right? He was ambidextrous. He could, shoot arrows with his right hand, with his left hand. He was able to do this. So that just shows you how powerful he was. So what Krishna is actually explaining is that you may think you are very, very, very powerful, right? And you may think that you are the doer. But please understand that I have a bigger plan. And if you want to be part of the plan, great. If you are not part of the plan will still go on. The plan of Krishna will still go on. Just look at Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 68, he left the comforts of Vrindavan and went to America, right, to preach the message which his spiritual master had requested him to do or instructed him to do, right? When he came back after the successful mission, a lot of his God brothers, out of jealousy, said that, oh yeah, anyone could have done that. Anyone could have done that. But Prabhupada wanted to correct them, and Prabhupada said, yes, anyone could have done that. But I wanted to be part of the plan of Krishna to do this. Anyone. It was there for everyone. The mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there for everyone. It is whether one wants to orchestrate his life in this. Similarly, every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. We have just forgotten this relationship. Everyone has forgotten that relationship. One fine day, this person will become a devotee. Not in this life, in future life, in many lifetimes away. Krishna is not going to give up on that person. So therefore, when Prabhupada was actually preaching, he was also somehow getting this in the mind of everyone that if you do not bring this message to these lost souls, someone else will do it. And that person will take the credit. Credit in the sense that he fulfilled this plan of Krishna. He assisted in the plan of Krishna, and you just lost that opportunity. Isn't it amazing? Therefore, whatever you are, learning from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, don't just keep this to yourself. Become an instrument in the plan of Krishna. Become an instrument in the plan of Krishna to bring everyone back to the spiritual world. Just like what Srila Prabhupada has done, just like what all the spiritual masters are doing. Just become an instrument in the plan of Krishna. So going back to the Mahabharata war, looking at the context of the Mahabharata war, what Krishna is saying to Arjuna is as follows. Therefore, get up and prepare to fight. After conquering your enemies, you will enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangements. And you, O Savyasachin, can be but an instrument in the fight. You can be an instrument in the fight. I've already done all of this. So in the grand scheme of, Krishna wanting to bring us back to the spiritual world, can you think of what are some of his possible sub-plans? Right? Some of his possible sub-plans and how we can be part of that sub-plans. For example, right? One way of realizing what our spiritual nature is by associating with prasadam, by consuming prasadam. All right? And therefore, the way to reaching the Lord ultimately could start by, serving others food which is karma-free, food which has been sanctified by the spiritual Lord, by the Supreme Lord. That is one way. Another way is whatever which we have discussed earlier on, whatever we know, whatever we have learned, we try to bring this to others. The third way is, if we have benefited from chanting of the Lord's names, we know what the potency of the names of the Lord are. The Lord is non-different from the Lord's names. We have received this. Why not also bring this to others? Right? Number 4 could be, in the spiritual world, every day is a festival. Every day is a festival. Why can we not also enjoy the same kinds of festivals in this material world and thereby imbibing this spiritual nature in ourselves? Right? The association of devotees and like-minded devotees is so important. Right? Why can't we just come together and associate, share our realizations, provide a safe space for others, etc.? Actually, having classes like this is great. This is nice, right? I'm also benefiting by preparing for the classes. All of us are also benefiting by just chanting mantras, etc. But in order to bring this to the next level, sometimes a one-on-one conversation with devotees is important, right? And therefore, we need to look for devotees who can understand our minds, who can be non-judgmental, right? Because that goes a long way. This broad format, this is good, but bringing it a notch further would be sharing of the minds, right? That's very, very important. So these are all plans of the Lord, sub-plans of the Lord, sub-plans of the Lord. And what we can do is we can actually become an instrument in this. Just like how Arjuna became an instrument in Krishna's bigger plan. Okay. So the purport says, just become an instrument, nimitra matram. This word is also very significant. The whole world is moving according to the plan of Krishna. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan, and all manifestations are but accidental formations. So, we have our monthly Kirtan program. There's one Dutch girl who, she came for 3 of the programs, and she just wanted to have a more deeper conversation. So Hui Mataji, she reached out to me and said that, can you just speak to her? And I was like a little busy, and she was really insistent, She said, no, I want to know. I want to learn more. And then I had a 1.25 hour session where I invited her over to my office. And it was like, from ground zero, she wanted to know. She was born in an atheistic family, right? No religion, everything happens because of science, etc. But then she felt that there was something bigger. There was a bigger plan. And therefore, I got into a conversation, and I felt really good about this. And now she's gone back to Amsterdam. And this week, my Guru Maharaj is in Amsterdam, and she's going to be meeting my Guru Maharaj. Just so amazing, right? Just by coming to a Kirtan program, just by hearing the Maha Mantra, just by singing out the Maha Mantra, right? A few layers of the cabbage in the heart has already been removed. Just by engaging, just like what Mataji mentioned earlier on, right? Transcendental knowledge. Sonia Mataji spoke about transcendental knowledge, right? Just by listening a little bit more about transcendental knowledge, a little bit more cabbage layers were open. And now you see how Krishna had orchestrated that. My Guru Maharaj happens to be in Amsterdam. She was speaking to me 1 week ago, and she's going back to Amsterdam. And I told her my Guru Maharaj is going to be there, and she's so excited. This week, she's actually going to be meeting Guru Maharaj and speaking. You see? So we can just become small little instrument. I'm not saying that I was an instrument, but we can just try to facilitate this, right? So there are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this or maybe like this, but there's no question of perhaps and maybe. There's a specific plan being carried out in the material world. What's the plan? The cosmic manifestation is a chance for conditioned souls to go back to Godhead, back to home, right? So that's the grandest plan of Krishna. The grandest plan of Krishna is to provide everyone the chance for all of these conditioned souls to go back to his house. As long as they have the domineering mentality which makes them try to lord over the material nature, they are conditioned. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. The creation and destruction of the cosmic manifestation are under the superior guidance of God. Thus, the battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of God. Arjuna was refusing to fight, but he was told that he should fight and at the same time desire the Supreme Lord. then he would be happy. If one is in Krishna consciousness and his entire life is devoted to this transcendental service, he is perfect. Okay. Any questions, any realization before we move on to the main part of our class, which is Srimad Bhagavatam? Anything anyone wants to share? Yeah, actually, it's just 4 of us who are switching on our camera. The rest of us are so shy. Anything? Manoj Prabhu? There are 2 Manojas here. Ankur Prabhu? Hi, Malti. You are out in the forest. Okay, good. Looking at the forest, you will realize that the entire thing is a creation of Krishna.
Exactly, Prabhuji, exactly.
Right. Do you feel a sattvic consciousness in the forest?
Yes, I do.
Okay, except for the occasional mosquitoes coming and giving you a check that you are still in the material world.
But they are also beings created from Krishna, so I have to accept it.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So no realizations, nothing else to share? Anuj Prabhu, yes?
Can I ask a question, Prabhu?
Yes, Lalita ji, yes, please. I'm always waiting.
No, I was thinking about what you mentioned earlier about we desire something and the Paramatma sanctions and Durga Devi provides, right? So there are things people desire. Okay, so if it's something you desire, something good, your children pass exams, that kind of thing, then that's normal, that's fine. Huh? But what if sometimes you desire something and the outcome may not be good for you? Does the Lord still provide it? Because you're not aware that it's good or not good, and then you just desire something. What happens then?
So Saint Teresa of Avila, so she said that there were many more tears which were shed due to prayers which were answered than prayers which were not answered. Therefore, sometimes, Lalita ji, we ask for something which maybe keep on binding us into this world. I'm reminded of this episode which Prabhupada always explains that, there was this lady, right, walking in the forest, picking up sticks, etc. Huge bundle of sticks on her head. And then, she was singing Krishna's kirtan while she was going about, balancing a huge amount of firewood on her head. And then she tripped, she fell. All her hard work was just ruined because she had to keep on accumulating all of this together. And she shouted out, Krishna! Krishna appeared in front of her and said, what can I do for you? And she says, please put all of these twigs back on my head. Please help me, the whole 3 hours I was accumulating all of this. Please help me to put it on my head. So she had that free will on what to ask, point number 1. Her consciousness was not evolved enough, right? It was more like, just listening to Katha and not realizing it, right? And therefore, her consciousness was such that she just asked Krishna, please help to put this burden back on my head. While she kept on walking after that, she thanked Krishna and she kept on walking and she realized, I could have asked to go back to the spiritual world. I could have asked so many things. How foolish was I to actually just ask him to be trapped into this material world again and again and again. I lost this chance. So sometimes when we are asking for something from Krishna, we do not maybe know, sometimes it might work out well for us. Sometimes it may not be working out well for us. In all our lives, okay, we have asked a lot from the Lord. And as a transcendental butler, he had provided. Sometimes he did not provide. But in time to come, you will actually realize that, wow, whatever he did not provide, whatever which I wanted, but which was not given to me, actually in time to come, you will realize that there is a bigger reason why I didn't get it. At that point in time, we will not realize it, but in time to come later on, we will realize that, wow, it's good that I didn't get it. That's one part of your question. The second part of your question is that even if Krishna knows this is not going to be good for you, but because you asked, because we asked for something, because we had this desire, we had this independence, we had this desire to ask Krishna, and Krishna may give this to us. All right. And then later on, we realize that, wow, actually, I shouldn't have asked for this. Just like in this case of this lady. So, yeah, vision 6:6 is great, right? But we do not get vision 6:6 immediately. It's after some time, that's when we actually realize this. Does it make sense, Lalita Mataji?
Yeah, it does. Because I was thinking that he may give or he may not give, but sometimes he does give, and then the outcome is not so good for us.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to think wisely before we ask him what we want to ask him.
Yeah. So something which I learned from my Guru Maharaj is that actually, I treat this person as a guru because he's the one who brought me to Krishna consciousness, right? He was my fellow teacher in Gunning Singh Secondary School. And he told me that, if you have a desire, reach out to the Lord and say that if you so desire, oh Krishna, if you so desire, oh Krishna, you can give this to me. Okay?
Okay, so that's a very good way of asking. Yes.
Yeah. If you so desire, if you think, this is going to be good for me, if this is going to be good for my spiritual life, you do this. Yeah. If you so desire, oh Krishna. That's very nice, right? We are playing a game with Krishna. I won, but if you think it's not going to be good for me, then you don't have to give. But yeah, if your desire is this, I know that ultimately your desire is going to be, the primeval one, right? Okay. Anush Prabhu, you are going to say something just now.
Yes, Prabhuji, about this, being an instrument in Krishna's plan. So I knew about this, this Nimitt Matram, like verse, but I never realized that, like the first verse which you told, 3.27. So, even that relates to the, like being an instrument. So I'll reflect more on that verse, and it's a nice verse, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's get back to, I see a few questions over here. Give me a minute. Krishna's plan. Okay, good. Sonia Mataji. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we will get back to our class. Oops. Okay. So we saw that. Now we are going back to Bhagavatam, chapter number 6. This is going to be really fast. And I tell you what, in our next class is going to be, there's going to be a lot of storytelling about the life of Diti, right? And slowly you will see Dhruva Maharaj coming into the picture. So after 3.9 onwards, it becomes a lots of storytelling, and as humans, we love stories, right? So now, Maitreya Muni is sharing with Vidura what he has learned from Bhagwan Sri Krishna. Do you realize something? We're just looking at this picture and connecting it to what we have just studied in the last two verses. Anyone make a connection? So this is what we need to do when we are reading Bhagavatam. We need to make connections. We need to connect the dots. Ravi Prabhu, let's try. What's the connection you can make looking at this picture and the last two verses which we have just read?
He's seeking humility. Being very displaying signs of humility in the getting questions from the spiritual master. So he's acknowledging that Maitreya Muni is a spiritual master and humbly seeking knowledge from him.
Okay, how does it connect to the first two verses which we just discussed, which is, I'm not the doer. I am basically, everything is I'm just part of, I'm not the doer. The material nature is actually binding me and doing this. And the Lord is orchestrating this, okay, sanctioning it. And then the second verse was just become an instrument in my plan. So these two verses, you connect this to this picture, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, this picture is of Matrimony and Vidura, right?
Correct.
So I would like to say something.
Yes, Shalini Maji.
It is like earlier, Vidura was Vidurji went to Udhava. Then there Udhavji said that I want you to go there and ask Matrimuni. So here Matrimuni, the Muni Maharaj is just being instrument in giving the knowledge to Vidura.
Exactly.
So the way he is being instrumental, right? It could have been, in fact, Vidura ji knows most of the things, but even Udhav ji could have told him, but he came all the way here, and Matrimuni was being instrument in just parting the knowledge to him. That is my understanding, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Shalini Maji. Thank you very much, Ravi Prabhu. Exactly. Right? So you can see from this picture that if the Lord so desired, he could have just taught, right, the entire Bhagavatam to the rishis in Badrika Ashram. He could have also taught this to his uncle Vidura. But no, he wanted to give this credit to Uddhav. Uddhav was not even allowed to go back to the spiritual world. He became an instrument in the plan of Krishna to go to Badrika Ashram and teach this Bhagavatam to all of the sages who were waiting in Badrika Ashram for Sri Krishna. Similarly, Maitreya Muni is now becoming an instrument. Krishna could have done it. Come on, he's the Supreme Personality of God. He could have done it, but Krishna wanted to give, all right, this honor to Maitreya Muni. You see how Krishna, he could have done everything. It's like empowering, right? If you are the manager in a department, how do you empower others? Not by doing everything by yourself, but by giving the rest of them an opportunity to sharpen their act. Okay? Good. Thanks. Right? So you can see, it is not just Arjuna who became an instrument. Hanumanji became an instrument. Maitreya Muni became an instrument. Uddhav became an instrument. So, right? So now remember, all the elements, the individual elements were praying to Krishna. Please, 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 right? Allow us to become an instrument in your plan. Individually, just imagine if you were to eat, all right, your lunch. Your lunch was dal, one section, all right, individual dal section, then water, rice, uncooked rice, water, cauliflower, all right, potato, etc. These are all individual elements. How are we going to eat them? You need this cohesive energy to bring all of the elements together. So the elements are now asking Krishna, you have a great plan. Can I be an instrument in your service? Can you please bring us all together? You see how the individual elements are also becoming an instrument in Krishna's plan. This is so amazing. I didn't prepare for this, but we are now connecting the dots. Thank you, Shalini Mataji. Thank you, Ravi Prabhu. So the Lord saw these creative functions were all suspended. The all elements were all saying, "Oh, Krishna, you have produced all of these elements. Brahmaji is the secondary creator. He's wanting us to all come together. Please now bring your energy to combine all of us." At that moment, all the jivas and their dormant karma got awakened, and the elements were combined. What is the meaning of dormant karma? Anyone likes to try? Krishan Prabhu?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Was it directed towards me?
Yes, Krishan Prabhu. What's the meaning of dormant karma? If you look at the third box over here, all jivas and their dormant karmas got awakened.
See,
Can I try?
okay.
Okay, sure.
The desire to reconnect from the Lordship.
Okay, let's also hear from Krishan Prabhu.
See, there are certain karmas which are means actively you do every day, but there are certain karmas which are in your mind, but you are not able to do. So they, as you don't do, they continue to become dormant for you. So when you awaken them consciously, that's where the dormant karmas become more active. That's what I feel.
Okay. Anyone else? Bhagwanji. Renuka. Everyone is so quiet today. Shiv Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Pradeepji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so my interpretation of the dormant karmas is probably it refers to our past karmas that we did in our past lives.
Excellent.
So yeah, so when jivas get awakened, then the past life karma crystallizes into the present, and yeah, so we proceed from there.
Wonderful. Right. Exactly.
Can
right?
I try, Prabhu?
Yeah, so Shiv got the right answer, but can you also maybe give some commentary on this, Anuj?
Yeah, so adding to adding to the earlier comments, the dormant karmas are the karmas of the jivas from the earlier creation, from the earlier material creation.
Exactly.
And so it was so the earlier material creation was devastated, and now because the new creation is coming, so the karma the karmas and the desires all which the jivas had in the previous creation, they are not annihilated, they are again manifested in this new creation of the Lord, actually.
Wonderful. Right. So remember, right, what's going to happen is there was never a time when the Lord did not exist, and there's never a time when the Lord ceases to exist. Similarly, we as spirit souls have always been around, and there will never be a time when we do not exist. We will always be around. It's hard for us to, conceive this because of our material senses. So what happens is, at the end of Brahma's day, partial annihilation happens. All right. And the next day, he wakes up, the jivas, the creation again starts, right? So all these living entities who could not go back to the spiritual world, they remain in this material world. The karma does not become zero. The karma remains with them. It just becomes like a dormant volcano. When the jivas are reborn again, then that is the time where these karmas are carried together into their new bodies. Okay, so that's
So,
what it means.
Sonia has put some message in the chat saying that they are Sanchit Karmas. Maybe you want to look at the chat.
Okay, Sanchit Karma, please explain the Hindi. Mataji?
Prabhuji, Sanchit means collected karma. So it's the same. Sanchit means collected.
Okay.
So maybe Sanchit karma is, as you explained, is from, dormant karmas or the karmas collected from our previous life.
Yeah. So previous life doesn't just mean my last one life. It could be, after the entire universe was dissolved again, we are still there, individual entities with our karma. We come back again with that karma. All right. But if the Lord so desires, he can remove these karmas from us. All right. And then the Lord's Virat Roop also came into existence. You can see that, the 14 planetary systems, beginning from the lowest, will be the feet all the way up. Okay. So sometimes people, they feel it's easier for them to conceive the universal form of the Lord, the Virat.
I playing Krishna now.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So elements combine together to form a fetus in which all the lokas and the charas come together. The Virat Roop then lived on the waters with the Jiva for 100 celestial years till Brahma's birth. Then Lord will enter into Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, divided himself by the consciousness of the Jiva, the 10 life airs or the pranas, and then the self-identification. This becomes a little bit complicated, okay? But these are the 10 life airs which we have discussed in our previous, right? So Krishna is also giving that life air, right? The prana through the nose in the breathing, or the apana, right? The evacuation of the bodily air through the rectum. So Krishna is providing all of this, the samana, which adjusts the food in the stomach, right? So all of this different airs are also given by Krishna, right? Apart from the consciousness, the Lord also gives all these 10 type of airs, and then he also gives us that Shakti of identifying ourselves. So then the Lord also forms in all the living entities the mouth, the palate, the nostrils, the eyes, the ears, etc. Right? Including the legs. And then for each of these, there is a demigod who is responsible. Right? That is why when you go to some of the South Indian temples, including Tirupati, sometimes, people may have an injury or some health, etc. So they pray to the Lord, please get me well. And then when they are better, they'll buy a gold plate with a drawing of the hand or the feet, etc. And they'll go and offer this to the undi, Yeah, so that's what a lot of South Indian practice that. Okay. Then this same chapter also explains about the developments of the planets and the living entity. What does the head represents, the legs, the abdomens, etc. So these are all very technical. Just understanding that everything comes from Krishna. Krishna does all of this. Brahma is just a secondary creator. That's good enough for us. So now Maitreya, while he's describing all of this, he feels unworthy to describe the Lord's unlimited glories. He says, yeah, I heard all of this from Krishna, but, these are inconceivable. And, who am I to explain all of this? I'm also struggling to also understand this. Who can estimate the transcendental time, work, and potency of the Virat Rupa? All right. So he started to glorify Krishna despite his inability. Let's take a pause here and look at, is Krishna wanting, 100% efficacious, perfectly narrated prayer? Or is the Lord happy with, whatever comes from the heart? Maitreya Muni is a great sage. All right. So he's glorifying the Lord in front of Vidura. At the same time, he feels that, it's not worthy enough for the Supreme Lord. But this is captured in Bhagavatam. Right? So the Lord is not looking for 100% perfectly curated offerings. What the Lord is looking for is sincerity. So Shalini Mataji, you'll remember when your daughters were, 3 years old, 4 years old, when they started singing to you, making a birthday card for you, etc. The cards were possibly wrongly drawn. The B, instead of B this way, the B would have come the other way, etc. Right? Inabilities were there. Imperfections were there. But how did you feel, Shalini, when you received those gifts from them?
Yes, I feel their love, could see their affection and intention towards me. I feel blessed.
Exactly. So that is exactly how the Lord feels. Right? We don't need to be 100% perfect. The problem is sometimes when we are 100% perfect, we forget that there are other elements of life, right, which we need to give some energy to. And therefore, Guru Maharaj explains that, we can be 70 to 80% perfect in everything. That's enough. We don't need to, just like in service management, in hotel, in hospitality, etc., the hotels do not aim for 100% service delivery or 100% satisfaction scores, because it becomes very expensive beyond 95%. If they can get 95% of their residents or their consumers happy, they are happy. From 95% to 97, 98, 99, it becomes very, very, very expensive for them. Similarly, all of us, we don't need to be perfect in anything. This morning, I just got a lecture from my wife on perfection. Right? She says you are aiming for perfection when you don't need to. Because I was cutting fruits and something went crazy from my side. And then it was like a wake-up call. So, he just continued to glorify despite his inability. And then he explains also the purpose of the year is to hear Harikatha. And then he explains about Brahmaji. Brahmaji could know Lord's glories only after meditating for 100 celestial years. So there's no way for us to, it's inconceivable. We cannot understand the Lord with our, small little brains. The Lord needs to reveal himself to us. Okay? The Lord is beyond words, mind, and ego, along with the respective controlling demigods. So that brings an end to chapter number 6. Let's now get into chapter number 7. There are just 3 verses from chapter number 7 which are very, very important. I'm going to highlight them. Homework would be to go back and read the purports of these 3 verses. Let's start with the first one. But that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vasudev, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. I spoke to you, making it real, I spoke to you about this Dutch girl, right? And then slowly coming for kirtan, right? Even kirtan, while you are hearing, you are doing devotional service. When you are chanting, you are doing devotional service, right? Slowly, gradually, by the mercy of the Lord, okay, this misconception that it is me, I'm the body, I'm not the spirit soul. What's the spirit soul? All of this through the process of devotional service to the Lord in mode of detachment, all of this will be slowly removed. Okay, so that's the first verse I want you to do. 3.7.12. Just read the purport. The next verse. When the senses are satisfied in the super soul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished as after a sound sleep. All right, so when we can actually use all our senses in the satisfaction of Krishna, then the mind will become spiritual in nature. When the mind is spiritual in nature, the intellect is spiritual in nature, then the mind will tell you that there are these are two, there's a degree of separation between what is material and what is spiritual. The mind, because has become so spiritualized, the mind, when looks at a material problem, will classify it as a temporary problem. Okay. So once again, going back, once our senses are spiritualized by doing uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service to the Lord, with the senses being purified, the mind is purified, the intelligence is purified, the mind then is able to draw a nice distinction between what is spiritual and what is material. When the mind is faced with a material problem, the mind will know that there is an beginning and there's an end to this material problem. That is why as we read the Bhagavatam, you realize that the rishis are beginning to explain to us that all the problems are not really necessarily due to karma. The problems we perceive are due to our mind. This is bringing it to the next level. Okay, so read that. And finally, simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, activities, leelas of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one can achieve the stopping of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? Okay, so this is like coming back to our earlier discussions in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, etc. So, with that, we come to the end of today's class. Thank you very much for all your contributions. Shalini, Shiv, nice to see you all. Anuj Prabhu, thank you. Satya Mataji, the first person who logs on to Zoom every week since the last 6 years. Sapana Mataji, nice to see you here. Sonia Mataji, our best wishes to Samar, Ankur Prabhu, Shefali Mataji, Manoj Gulati Prabhu, Manoj, my childhood friend. Hey, hi Samar, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Say thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wow. Very nice. Karuna Mataji, Hare Krishna. Bunty and children, Hare Krishna. Priyanka, Hare Krishna. Chris from Australia, Hare Krishna. Lalita Mataji, thanks for the questions. Bhagwanji, please unmute yourself when I ask you a question. I'd like to hear from you. Dorothy Mataji, thank you very much for joining. Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna. So I'll send you the details. Yeah, Ankur Prabhu, you are relaxing like Lord Vishnu. Nice. That's good. Okay, take care. Hare Krishna. Have a great week ahead of all of you. Bye.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks.
Right.
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhuji.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
His Grace Padmalochan Prabhuji ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.